Welcome to HB Reddit Stories. Today we will see stories of r/am I the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for making my husband get our 3-year-old to sleep because he was the one that promised she can stay up late? My husband and I have 2 and 3-year-old daughters. Our 3-year-old is suspected to have autism and we're waiting on an evaluation, but we're all pretty sure she has it. Our 3-year-old also has pink eye. Last night at dinner, my husband promised the 3-year-old that she can stay up late since she's not going to preschool today. I asked how late and he said 9. Bedtime is at 7:30. I told him I wasn't going to deal with that mess and if he wants to let her stay up that late he can be the one to get her to sleep. I got the little one in bed and watched my husband play with her while I cleaned up. Tantrums started at 8 and she was miserable when he got her in the bath at 8:45. She was melting down in the bath, then in bed, and he eventually gave her the pacifier. We'd been trying to wean her off, and brought her to our bed at 9:45. She finally fell asleep at 10 and my husband told me he's upset with me for leaving him to do everything by himself even when I knew they were having a hard time. I told him I wasn't the one that promised the autistic 3-year-old that she can break from the routine and go to sleep an hour and a half past her bedtime, but he still thinks I should have helped. Am I the a-hole for not helping? Top comments. Not the a-hole. You were extremely clear that he would be doing this solo. He made his choice knowing the consequences it would have. It is not your job to clean up the messes he chooses to make. Is he so checked out of the family that he doesn't realize the impact deviating from routine would have? Honestly, this would bother me on such deep levels. Why are you the default parent? And if you're the default parent, why isn't he talking to you before making commitments he can't keep to your child? If you're not the default parent, why are you expected to swoop in and fix his mistakes, that you warned him would be a mistake, that you shouldn't have had to warn him about in the first place if he were an active parent? OP replies. He actually didn't know the consequences when he promised our 3-year-old because I found out at the same time as her. He didn't give me an opportunity to warn him. He's a very involved dad, just a little clueless sometimes since our kids are the only kids he's ever been around. Not the a-hole. You should do this every time he tries to deviate from the routine and rope you into it. OP replies. Oh, he's not deviating from the routine again. Not the a-hole. Don't try to be the fun parent if you can't back it up and deal with whatever comes with it. You can't pass off dealing with the predictably crappy outcome of your actions onto someone else, particularly the exact person who knew it was a bad idea. Also, I would wager you've put your children to bed without help countless times and didn't whinge about it, but happy to be wrong on that. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay for my niece's wedding after promising to cover it? So, I'm a 35-year-old guy, and I've always been close with my older sister, Emily, 38F, and her daughter, Lily, 22F. Emily had Lily when she was young, 16, and since she was a single mom for most of it, I've always tried to help out where I could. Over the years, I've paid for Lily's summer camps, her college applications, and even her first car. I did this because I love them both and always wanted to support them. A year ago, Lily got engaged to her long-term boyfriend. When they announced the engagement at a family dinner, I said I'd be happy to help with wedding expenses. I never said I'd pay for everything, but apparently, my offer was interpreted as me footing the bill for the whole wedding. It became clear when Lily and Emily started planning a big, extravagant affair, destination wedding, 200+ guests, you name it. I sat them down and said I'd contribute $15,000, which I thought was a pretty generous amount. But they both seemed really upset. Lily said I promised to pay for the wedding, and Emily backed her up, saying I always supported them and this was the least I could do. Apparently, they were expecting I'd cover a $50,000 plus wedding. I told them that wasn't happening. $15,000 was all I could give. Now, here's where things get worse. Lily and Emily stopped including me in the wedding planning entirely. I didn't hear much from them for a while, and it turns out they booked everything for the wedding thinking I'd eventually cave and cover it. Now they're in over their heads, and the wedding is just 3 months away. Emily called me, crying, saying they were going to lose deposits and that I ruined the wedding by not coming through. Lily isn't speaking to me. Here's the kicker, Emily and Lily are now saying I'm being manipulative, offering to help and then taking it away at the last second, making them look bad in front of the groom's family. They claim they never would have planned something so extravagant if I hadn't promised to cover it all. But I never said that. I said I'd help. I feel like I've done more than enough over the years, but now I'm being treated like the villain for not paying for this giant wedding. Am I the a-hole? Top comments. Not the a-hole, how incredibly entitled. I think it's absolutely awful how they're trying to take advantage of your generosity. If an uncle offered to give me $15,000 for anything, I'd be so grateful. They dug this hole themselves, and now they're finding out your boundaries are, in fact, actual boundaries that you plan to stick to. Good for you. They could have planned a perfect good wedding for $15,000 or threw in a bit of their own money for a $20,000 wedding, shaking my head. Next story. Am I the a-hole for replying no when mother-in-law asked if I would apologize for my wife/her daughter? My wife lost her dad 9 months ago. We learned a few days later she was pregnant. For a few weeks she had such a hard time coping with the fact she was expecting our first child after losing her dad, and the fact he would never get to meet his grandkids or live to be a living, breathing grandfather. She ended up seeking therapy because it was a struggle for her to get back on track. I was doing everything I could to support her. In that time mother-in-law was around a lot. My wife was their only child, so mother-in-law leaned on her and sought out the comfort of having family. They grew closer than ever before, and slowly mother-in-law started spending less time with us. But she'd still stop by, and they wanted mother-in-law to be there for a 3D/4D ultrasound my wife was booked in for. I was also there, of course. On the day of, mother-in-law showed up with a man and introduced him as her boyfriend. She said she wanted to include him in such a special moment. My wife said he was not coming into the room with us, and they argued before my wife told mother-in-law to leave. Mother-in-law and my wife fought more afterward because my wife didn't say hi or anything to mother-in-law's boyfriend. And because mother-in-law felt my wife should have been more open to including him. Things became tense because my wife told mother-in-law she couldn't be around him yet. Mother-in-law tried pushing and pushing, but my wife held firm. When my wife had our baby she let mother-in-law know, and mother-in-law wanted her and the boyfriend to visit to meet their grandchild. My wife said she could come, but he was not welcome. A week later, just this past weekend in fact, mother-in-law dropped by to confront my wife over this. Mother-in-law told her she was being selfish and how her boyfriend is lovely and would be a wonderful grandfather and how she can't force them apart. My wife said that's fine. If she can't come without him, then she'd just have to accept it. Mother-in-law said she doesn't have to. Just accept him and let our child have a grandfather. Accept having another older male presence in her life. My wife lost her temper and yelled at mother-in-law that the boyfriend is not our child's grandfather, is not anything to her, and nobody she dates will ever be able to fill those shoes. Then my wife left the room and went to cry. She wanted some space, so I gave it to her and told mother-in-law she needed to leave. Mother-in-law wouldn't leave at first, and then she goes, "I suppose you'll apologize for her now," and I just said no. Nothing else, just no. And then I was able to get her to leave. She made some kind of angry face at me and told me I didn't need to be so rude about saying no. That I didn't need to mock her. Am I the a-hole? Top comments. Not the a-hole. You don't bring a boyfriend to meet the family at an ultrasound, even the boyfriend should have known that. The mother-in-law's comments make it seem like she's trying to fill in the void that the father-in-law's passing left, and she's doing it quickly. I hope she's not rushing into things. If your mother-in-law wants to introduce the new boyfriend to your child, she needs to take the time to introduce him to you and your wife away from the kid. And based on what's happened so far, it's going to take a lot of time. Don't apologize to your mother-in-law. You should have just laughed at her comment and told her to get out. Mother-in-law wanted to bring a stranger into your wife's ultrasound, and that guy was apparently also fine with it. That's messed up. Not the a-hole, and it sounds like you don't need her around. Next story. Am I the a-hole for asking my uncle what the hell does he expect me to do? I'm 22F, not that close with my uncle. He's my mom's brother and they're close, but he and I never were. My uncle has 4 kids. 2 sets of kids from 2 marriages to be accurate. His older kids, Evan and Sasha, are a little bit older than me, but we were very close growing up and remain close. Their mom died and my uncle remarried and has two more kids who are 11 and 9, Hannah and Caleb. Evan and Sasha don't talk to my uncle anymore and they don't talk to or see Hannah and Caleb or my uncle's wife/Hannah and Caleb's mom. Sasha started streaming video games about a year ago. She started getting noticed more recently and kids at Hannah and Caleb's school were talking about Sasha, which led to them seeing a video and realizing who the kids were talking about. They watched some of her streams and during a couple of them Sasha had been asked about siblings and Evan was in her stream chat and she told people she had an older brother and shouted out Evan. Both times she was saying it as though Evan was her only sibling. This upset Hannah and Caleb and they told my uncle and they cried about it to their parents. My uncle tried to contact Sasha but she changed her number so he couldn't. Then he approached me mad, like really mad, and he told me I need to fix this and get Sasha and Evan to stop acting this way. He said it's beyond cruel to ignore the fact they have two younger siblings who miss them, and then to go public like that and only say they have one sibling. He said since they stayed close to me I can fix it. I asked him what the hell he expects me to do. He told me it should be obvious what I need to say but clearly not when I have a bratty attitude at my big age, his words. He told me I clearly don't want to and have no problem with what they're doing so I'll just disrespect him. Am I the a-hole? Top comments. Not the a-hole. He didn't even have a real ask. Fix it is not something you tell your niece to do. Especially because he obviously has no relationship with his older two kids. Changing your phone number and giving the new one to your cousin but not your dad says a lot. OP replies. Yep, and I was asked not to give him their new numbers or where they live now. Which I wouldn't anyway knowing they went no contact. But like, it says so much. Definite not the a-hole. This isn't even your business, let alone your responsibility. Uncle has gone off it. OP replies. He thinks he can make it my business or anyone's business who'll do what he wants. Not the a-hole. Yeah, it sounds like is your job to fix his bad relationship with his oldest kids. I would block him, and I'd tell my mom, her brother, is a mess and blaming people for problems he created and he's blocked until he can apologize and speak to me respectfully. And OPE, even if you were inclined to try to help, obviously you shouldn't and won't. This is his mess. You couldn't. His current concern is that his youngest kid's feelings are hurt, but the bigger issue is that he doesn't even have his daughter number. Things are so bad one of his kids isn't speaking with him and his focus was finding another way to yell at her to not make the kids that matter to him sad. OP replies. Two of them aren't. Evan has also changed his number and my uncle doesn't know. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not cleaning up after my boyfriend messed up? Context: my boyfriend of 2 years decided he wanted to cook tonight. As I had just been to the dentist and had a procedure done, I told him that if he chose to cook it, he needed to know that I had no interest in participating and if that wasn't okay we could take a meal from the freezer. He really wanted to and made mac and cheese. This needed to go in the oven and he wanted to use a pan that is very difficult to clean, so I told him to use a baking sheet of some sort to make sure it didn't stick too much. He chose not to. After he was finished and the form was burnt and lots of pieces stuck to it. He put it to soak and asked me before bed if I could clean it for him the morning after. I told him no. He then proceeded to say, "Oh, then I guess I'll be doing it at 8 a.m. in the morning before work." I asked what he meant and he said that he found it ridiculous that I wouldn't do it as I go to work later than him. I explained that I had previously tried to warn him about this issue and that I was trying to prevent it for him and that I didn't find it fair that he was trying to make me feel bad for not fixing it for him now that it could have been avoided. He thinks I should feel bad, but I really don't. Am I the a-hole? Update. Thank you to everyone who took the time to reply. I didn't expect this to gain this much traction. I saw everyone's advice on how I could change and do better in the future and obviously also the things I definitely shouldn't change. Once again, this is very out of the ordinary for our relationship and he is definitely not toxic or a red flag. We need to remember that one bad experience/choice does not a bad person make asterisk. We have had our talk in private about the situation once everyone was cooled off and the situation has been solved for both of us. Top comments. Not the a-hole. You gave him a heads up about not wanting to help, plus you warned him about the pan situation, and he ignored both. It's not fair for him to expect you to clean up after him, especially when you had a dental procedure and weren't up for it. If he chose to cook and ignored your advice, he should take responsibility for the cleanup too. It's about mutual respect, not shifting blame. I'm shocked anyone is giving you any grief over this. His mess, his chore. You warned him and he ignored you. Then, he pulled the old weaponized incompetence card. Tell him the dirty pan will be waiting for him when he gets home from work. No reason to get up early. But the one thing that isn't happening is OP cleaning after you disregarded advice. Not the a-hole. It sounds like he was hoping for a grateful reaction from you and to be the hero by making you dinner after your procedure. He is acutely aware that you warned him and that he still messed up. He seems to be having a little pity party for himself. Hopefully sleep will help calm him down and that this isn't a regular occurrence. Next story. Am I the a-hole for calling a coworker snarky when she said I gained weight? I, 27F, started taking weight loss meds this year. I wasn't really obese, but I was very overweight for quite a while. Since then, I lost about 70 pounds, started working out and really improved my mental health and self-esteem. Last week I went for lunch with a coworker and bumped into my sister-in-law, who knew about my weight loss but didn't see me in person since I started the process. She congratulated me on it and went about her day. My coworker asked me what she was congratulating me on, and I said that it was about my weight loss, to which she replied, "Oh, she was being polite then. 'Cause I think you actually gained a few pounds recently, didn't you?" That obviously made me confused LOL and said it was a bit snarky to say something like that, even if I actually had gained weight, which I didn't. I don't think it's a polite comment at all. My coworker finished with, "Well, I'm sorry if your fishing for compliments strategy didn't work on me." I'm very confused about this because even though she isn't my best friend or anything, we usually hang out at lunch or coffee breaks and get along really well. Maybe I offended her telling her it was snarky? Am I the a-hole? Top comments. Let me guess, coworker is chubby and feels threatened by your weight loss. OP replies. She has a similar body type to the one I have now. Maybe she just thought of me as a safe fat friend and doesn't like the fact she can no longer look skinnier by comparison. Not the a-hole. Your coworker seems pretty unhinged. Yes, her first comment was out of line and unnecessary, and flat out rude. Her second comment exposed some obvious resentment she has towards you with the weight loss, suggesting she thinks you've been fishing for compliments, perhaps around the office. To me, then, this was not a slip of the tongue or a comment she didn't realize was rude. It actually relates to feelings of animosity that she has towards you. That makes her toxic and harmful, in my eyes at least, and she's done you a huge favor by letting you know her real feelings on the matter. Time to keep her at arm's length. You were not wrong for letting her know you found her original comment offensive. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel HB Reddit Stories.